So tonight we have a presentation from Bob Hess and Chris Huber. They are responsible for a bunch of equipment up on Mount Vaca, I believe it is, which just recently had an event, which unfortunately happens far too often these days. They're going to tell us all about it and what they did. Bob is current president of the El Dorado County Amateur Radio Club and past broadcast engineer with some of the TV stations in the valley down here. He's just retired, so he now has his third career or something going. And Chris, well, you may have heard of N6ICW, his call sign, and the rather impressive network that he has set up with radios and repeaters and links and covering from Chico to Sacramento up to Tahoe. If you need to talk to anybody in that neck of the woods, Chris is the guy to go to. So with that, Bob, if you're out there, I think you're going to be sharing your screen.
I'm here, Greg. I'm not sure I see Chris here. Is Chris here? Well, we may be winging it, but no problem.
Winging is good.
So, yeah, my call's W1RH. I am from California. I don't have a Boston accent. I lived in Boston for 15 years. I was WB6EUQ. May have actually worked some of you guys. Got my license in 1963. And I've been building repeaters with some of my buddies ever since. N680T is here. I saw him here, and that may be L, I'm not sure. But this is a repeater we built back when we were kids up in Camino. And then we got really sophisticated. That's Kent, who's now K7YXZ. And we got more sophisticated. The first repeater I showed you was ancient. That was a 2-meter repeater. And there's Ed, K6SDW. This is a 440 repeater up on Bass Lake Ridge that we built. So Al, N680T, has been part of this from the very beginning, and he's part of our Mount Vaca group up there. So I'm going to do one last call here. Chris Huber, are you here? Okay, he must have. I have not. I just texted him. I haven't heard back from him. He said he'd make it. So here's the deal. We have a radio site up on Mount Vaca, and it's been there forever and ever and ever. It's this little black building or block building, and it's all hams. There are 5 ham radio groups that occupy the building. N6ICW's primary 2-meter repeater is in there. The repeater that Al, N680T, and me and W6AW, we have a 14727 repeater there. There is a 900 repeater, a 440 repeater, and then the W6YDD group has 146625. So we're all tenants. We all pay an equal share, but Chris, N6ICW, is the building manager. So he's the guy that calls us when the rent's due. So anyway, Mount Vaca, if you haven't been up there, this is kind of what it looked like before the fire. Beautiful views, clear air, green. Up at the very, very top, if you can look real closely there, is the radar tower that was owned by KPIX and KOVR, my station, both owned by CBS. We both had equipment in that building. And then looking straight down, a lake, and that's Mount Vaca before the fire. So then we had the fire, August 18th or 19th, I think, and living in fire country like many of us do, and especially me here, I live on top of a mountain, and my worst nightmare is having a fire come through overnight. That's exactly what happened up here on Mount Vaca. There are 2 roads up Mount Vaca, and Chris and I got in within a day after the fire. We were allowed in by the CHP. and it was just total devastation. House after house after house burned down. There's 2 roads that go up there, Mix Canyon Road and Gates Canyon Road. I usually take Mix. I've gone by these houses so many times over the years and nothing left. So those are some pictures taken overnight. This is where the fire was. Let's see if I can show my mouse here. Can I show it? I guess not. Mount Vaca is right up there on the Napa-Solano County line. If you see the line going through the red area, towards the bottom of the red area, that's where Mount Vaca is. As a matter of fact, Chris tells me that our tower is in Solano County and the building is in Napa County. I'm going to play a little bit of this video for you, and this will give you kind of a feeling of okay, it may be a little jerky, but it'll give you an idea of what the top of the mountain looked like after the fire. I was not the photographer here. This was my cue to have Chris tell you what all these sites are. That one, I believe, is a US Navy site, I think. A lot of destruction up there. Some of the communications towers had plenty of defensible space and they survived it pretty well. Some didn't. I was going to let this go to the point where you can see our CBS building up there, which was a beautiful location up there at the very top. And actually, that building survived pretty well, but KOVR, KMAX, and KPIX are moving out of that building. So everything was dismantled just prior to the fire. Anyway, so that is, I believe, the Navy site. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And just go a little bit farther here. The fire came up over the west side and just shot right over the top of that ridge. That road actually has a name. It's Blue Ridge Road. There we go. Now we're going to see a little more. So that is a former AT&T site. It's now owned by American Tower. And this was the site that the CBS weather radar was on the top of that tower. We had, both us and KPIX had our steerable dishes up there so we could tune in live shots. We had camera that linked to a view of I-80 in both Vacaville and Fairfield up there, linked via that site. So anyway, that site actually handled it pretty well. So we'll get out of that. Now get back to some stills to just show some of the devastation. This is going up Mix Canyon Road. That car is just a shell. It really makes you wonder, with this fire coming through so fast overnight, you know, did these people, they probably, if they made it out at all, they made it out with probably the clothes on their back and one of their cars. There was a house here. That was actually a house that was never finished, but what's left of it was destroyed in the fire. all around us, going up and down both the two roads going up to Mount Vaca, Mix Canyon and Gates Canyon, all the power lines, phone lines down. This is up on the top. Back a little bit below the top, I was very interested in this because I've been thinking about buying one of these tanks to use on a fire sprinkler system on my house. But it was very interesting to see what happened to the tank right next to it. There's a lot of speculation as to why that tank failed, but the guess is it didn't have any water in it. It certainly didn't save the house. That's the house. Okay, now we're up at the top. There are some sites like this one that fared pretty well. Hardly any damage. And then there's this site. This is a site owned by ComSites West. Some broadcasters and various other companies rent space from them. That is a tower that is at least 100 feet high, maybe 150. At the very top, that kind of blob up there used to be a white radome for a steerable dish for a television station. And it's absolutely amazing how hot it was that far above ground. Let me go back and show you a shot of that tower to melt that radome up there. You'll see a station master type antenna that's just bent over like a wet noodle there. That microwave dish is just total black, just soot all over it. Look closely, you can see all the damage to those microwave dishes, the radomes burned out. And that tower is right next, it's our neighbor right across the street to ours, which is that little tan building in the distance. So there you go. That's the tower I just showed you. And our tower is a 100-foot tower, the Ham Tower in the background there. The pole, interestingly enough, most of the power poles burned down on the mountain. That pole is the pole servicing our building, and the wires are all stretched and touching the ground, but the pole actually survived. It was interesting. Chris and I were up there doing cleanup work, and we saw PG&E helicopter bringing pole after pole after pole. And they put a new pole up for us, and they had that pole in about 5 minutes. So this is the immediate vicinity of our building. That corner reflector, which is the lower, not the microwave dish, but the corner reflector down right there in the center, is the W6YDD 146625 antenna. That feed line was just totally burned out, and we checked that antenna with my return loss analyzer, which is kind of like a super deluxe high-end SWR meter, and that antenna was just toast. Chris has since rebuilt it, and it's going to go back up. So there's the tower. There's one of our guy wires. We were quite concerned about the guy wires, and I was talking about defensible space here a bit ago. We had quite a bit of brush that had grown up around our guy wires. There had been some clearing done over the years, but we probably could have done a better job. Those guy wires were of a lot of concern to me. I mean, I gave a talk to you guys a few years back on tall broadcast towers, you may recall. I'd actually given a couple talks, 2 or 3 talks to your club, but I have built many tall broadcast towers, including one of the 2,000-foot towers in Walnut Grove. So I know a fair bit about towers, and I was really concerned about the guy wires. A ham in our Motherlode DX contest club Jim, K60K, is a structural engineer. He's retired from state of California, now does just towers for hams, building permits and whatnot. We had Jim come up there, and he actually did quite a bit of testing on the guy wires and gave us a clean bill of health. There's one of the other guy anchors. Anyway, that was a big sigh of relief. I wanted to show you this shot. This is a picture of our building before the fire. And you can see kind of the, you know, small oaks and shrubs and whatnot around there. All of the transmission line going up the tower. And just some shots at various levels that Chris took. Chris is really good photographer and took quite a few shots of all the antennas on the tower. We actually have been using these shots to identify every antenna. Chris has just done a wonderful job identifying every antenna. We checked return loss on every one of the antennas. I believe we found a total of 4 antennas that had to be replaced. One of them is the antenna on the left, 4 external dipoles. That is the N6ICW repeater antenna. And that antenna did have to be replaced. The inside of our building, that block building, other than a little bit of soot in there, fared pretty well. We each have a rack. The far right rack is N6ICW's flamethrower on 147-195. The center rack is our rack, LN680T, W6AW, and I. We've got a Vertex repeater on 147-27. And we have a Midland high power amplifier, that kind of gray black box right in the center of the rack. On the right is a 900 repeater. And then on the other side of the room, these racks are sort of face to face. We've got the W6YDD group in the center, and we have W6CBS's 440 repeater on the right. Tower at the bottom looked just fine. And actually, Jim looked at the tower too, gave it a clean bill of health. However, this is what our transmission line looked like. And that kind of blob on the left side of the electrical entrance is the cover on the PG&E meter. So it was rather hot there. I'll show you some more pictures of the transmission line in a bit. I can't really show you which antennas failed, but we found that the bulk of the antennas on the tower were okay. Our 147-27 is one of those white sticks on the left. We have a master receive antenna for 2 meters and 440 and 420 at the very top of the antenna, top of the tower. So the master receive antenna is used by N6ICW, our repeater W6AEX on 147-27 and W6YDD. We all have our own individual transmit antennas, however. That kind of hard to see. There's kind of a tan box right below those cross arms. That was Jim Sawyer. I forget Jim's call sign. Jim had kind of a tunable inverted V up there. Actually, I think it was a delta loop. And that was a remote controlled antenna tuner. And Tyler, K6TLR, took it down, and that's how hot it got up there at the top of that 100-foot tower. Kind of turned that thing into toast. There's another shot of that PG&E meter, such as it is. There's Tyler, K6TLR. Tyler, I might add, I could do a whole presentation on Tyler. my daughter actually married a ham, and it had nothing to do with her father being a ham, and that's Tyler. A very active ham, four-wheeler, and he's been doing all our tower climbing. So he's up there, and he was working at that point on the N6ICW antenna. The tower here is rigged. That's Tyler about 3/4 of the way up. And what we did was we dropped a 100-foot piece of Alamar 400 down to the ground. It was hooked up to my return loss analyzer. And then Tyler went to every antenna on that tower and we checked return loss, which told us right away if the antenna was toast or not. There's another shot of Tyler. He decided he was going to take a picture looking down. He told me, hey, it doesn't look so high when you're up on top. I don't know about that. So that is a look at what happened to our transmission line. Now, there are some hams that might say, you could still use that stuff, but we ended up pulling out every piece of line. We have pulled it all down off the tower, totaled over 1,100 feet of transmission line, very expensive stuff, all 1/2 inch or 7/8 inch heliacs. If you remember, that line is right next to that PG&E meter, so it may look good on the outside, but not so good on the inside. Heliacs is it's just big coax. And anybody that knows coax knows that the center conductor is supposed to be in the center of that line. So not very good. So we are replacing every last bit of that. Tyler and Bob Vendetti, W6AW, and Chris and I took a Sawzall and we cut up about almost 1,200 feet of transmission line, put it in my pickup truck, and for $12 deposited in the Alvarado County dump. So there's some of that line that we cut off the tower. That's, I think that's Chris there in the background, stretching all that line out. And we used that little table to start hacking it up into 4 or 5 foot pieces. So that's the building. After the fire, the ridge is super narrow and super steep. We're looking west to east here, and it goes down rapidly to the east. And right behind me, when I took that picture, it goes down very rapidly to the west. All the heat from that fire hit that side of the building. We're going to take a power washer up there and try to repaint it. But as I showed you, inside, everything was just fine. Chris just had a new electrical entrance installed. He tells me a ham is the electrician, could very well be a member of this club. I'm not sure. And we now have power to the building, but we still need to put all the new heliacs up. So despite all of this, Greg had mentioned that you guys had, I think one of our club members did a soda talk. Well, Mount Vaca happens to be a soda peak. So just for the heck of it, it's sort of a drive-up soda peak. The purists will tell you that you need to walk the last 100 feet. That was kind of impossible. So I took a lightweight aluminum mast and a little thing there that works really cool. It's just 2 ham sticks. And I worked all over the country with that thing. That was before the power came back and there was absolutely no noise. So anyway, that's it. Not too long. It's mainly a picture show, but I thought I'd share with you guys just what we're dealing with right now. None of the repeaters, unless Chris was up there today and did something, None of the repeaters are operational yet, but they will be very soon. So that's it.
Hey, Bob, this is Bill. The beginning shots with the fire that happened overnight, who took the, where did they come from?
Well, there are a number of cameras up there. PG&E, at least 2 of those shots came from, if not all of them, came up from a camera on the PG&E tower. The PG&E tower, by the way, and I should have identified it, it is our neighbor to the north, and the ComSites tower with that big blob at the very top is our neighbor to the south. The ComSites tower just got destroyed. Almost every antenna on that. The PG&E tower came out almost untouched.
Comment? Question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was looking at the way that's set up, and I'm wondering if you could do something like something as simple as T-post and corrugated metal, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet out from the building to shield, to make a shield, a heat shield, to protect the building and protect the feed lines and all that.
Well,
Kicks.
That could probably work. There's a number of buildings up there that are actually shipping containers, that over the years, people have bought those old shipping containers and turned them into communication sites. And most of those shipping containers came out pretty well. But as Chris and I say, we're not, the last fire that came through, I believe, was 1987 or 1988 up on Mount Vaca. And Chris and I really don't think we're going to be around by the time all that vegetation grows back. So I'm not sure we need to worry about fireproofing the place for a while. Any other questions?
Any questions for Bob?
So Bob, this is AI6US Brian. What do you think is the time frame to get all your repeaters back up and running?
Well, I'm optimistic that we will have at least the major repeaters back in operation next week. Chris, my whole life with repeaters, other than the Vaca repeater, is a huge network of repeaters that the El Dorado Club has. And so I maintain a 6 440, 2 900s, a 220, 2 2-meter repeaters, and 8 voting sites for the El Dorado Club. Chris, his whole life is the N6ICW repeater system. And Chris has really built a superb system. The El Dorado Club, we have a backup repeater on Bald Mountain. Chris has a backup repeater, which I believe is also on a different Bald Mountain. And so N6ICW's repeater has continued to operate albeit at lower power and without the Mount Vaca receiver. Our repeater that N6ADT and W6AW and I have is just a standalone repeater up there. We also have a repeater on a mountain in El Dorado County, and we're going to be linking those two. But that repeater is totally shut down. The YDD repeater, that group actually has 3 repeaters in the area on 146.625. So they haven't been hurt so much. Their other repeaters are operational. But we hopefully will have all 3 of the 2-meter repeaters operational next week.
Okay. Any lessons learned? Looking back, you had talked about trimming back the brush or other things. Is there anything kind of like what could have been done differently to minimize your repairs and such?
I don't think there's anything that would have helped the transmission line or the antennas. That fire came through so fast and so hot You know, that stuff was just going to be all toast, and I don't think there's anything we could have done about that. I think we dodged a bullet with the guy wires, and we certainly, the YDD group, Chris tells me, I think have been up there this week, cutting back some of that dead brush. We're definitely learned a lesson there. I think we're going to keep that area around the guy wires pruned. So the other lesson I think I learned myself, because I live on a mountain, not unlike Mount Vaca, is that concrete block building was just perfect inside. And I'm seriously thinking of building a concrete block, cinder block shed here, that if we had a fire come through really quick, maybe putting oxygen in it, and it would be kind of a safe house. And we could also store valuables in there if a fire came through real quick.
Yeah, be careful on the oxygen. It's important, but you're done right. So now that all the brush is gone, then you have, I mean, hopefully long time before another fire comes through, but you're still at the mercy of PG&E for power. Is there backup power for the site, or how does that, I mean, all the power shutoffs we've been having?
That's a good question. We don't have a generator at the site, but we do have, and I've got to thank Jim Sawyer. Gosh, I wish I could remember Jim's call. Jim is a former state of California engineer, and most state of California sites are all run on huge battery banks with chargers. Our 2-meter repeater for the El Dorado Club on Mount Danaher, they just give me 12 volts to our rack, and those battery banks can run for weeks. We have a much smaller version of that, but our battery banks up there can keep the site going for maybe a day, but after that, we're dead in the water. So if we lose power up there, for instance, last year in a PG&E shutdown, you know, all the repeaters were down after, you know, 12 to 24 hours. I might add, by the way, one other thing. The first thing Chris did when he went up there was bring a battery charger, because we were concerned that those batteries, you know, might have gone reverse on us. So Chris spent quite a bit of time playing with the batteries, being real careful with them, and recharging them.
Yeah. No thoughts for solar though? Something like that?
Say again?
Any thoughts about solar backup?
You know, I'll tell you, I was talking to Chris. I said, hey, Chris, we should put a solar cell up on the roof to keep those batteries charged until we get power back. So Chris bought, I think, about a 4-foot by 3-foot solar cell, laid it on the roof of the building. It really did a pretty nice job keeping those batteries charged. We may just leave it there.
Yeah, okay.
The problem is Mount Vaca is a public site. Anybody can drive up there, and I'd really want to make sure that solar cell is disguised up on the roof and somebody doesn't try to steal it.
That's the problem, I think, Bob, is there's a lot of theft up there.
There's N6ICW.
How are you, Bob?
I'm good, Al.
Hey, when are we going up and finishing the heliacs?
Well, I was out counting, looking at my stock of half-inch heliacs today, and I found a 400-foot roll. So we need to, those are going to be 2 runs to the top of the tower. So we need to get
I think I've got 200 feet.
Okay. Well, now you guys met my partner in crime here. That might have been you in that picture, Al, that old picture I showed.
It was in the old Chevy. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been doing repeaters for a long time.
This is Jerry, WA6E. Do you know how the Mount Vaca Radio Club boys fared in all of this?
Yeah. Well, I think I do. Al, what's Skip's call?
WV6F.
Yes.
Victor 6 Fox.
Yeah, Skip is another ham. He actually owns a couple sites up on Mount Vaca, and the Mount Vaca Radio Club, I believe, is on one of Skip's sites. And interesting thing, I don't know if you've seen it, Al.
It survived.
Skip had just about a week or two before the fire. It's amazing. He had a bulldozer come out there and completely plow everything around the building. And as far as Skip's site is concerned, you'd think there was never a fire.
He should go to Reno and buy a lottery ticket. Second question, Bob, on your block house, what kind of roof do you have? And my thought is the blocks may have survived, but what happened to the roof? Was it a built up tar type roof or what?
It's a concrete roof. It's interesting. CBS, I had a site, still have, up on Mount Vaca, or on Bald Mountain, which is east of Georgetown, with an almost identical building with a concrete roof. That happens to be where our 6 meter and 900 repeater are for the club. But that concrete roof taught me a lesson too, because if I build a cinder block shed here, it's going to have a concrete roof.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Just curious, where did you live in Boston?
Hopkinton, Mass, the start of the Boston Marathon.
I spent quite a bit of time at Hanscom Field, so I know it well. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the presentation. I enjoyed it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Awesome.
Bob, this is Bill again. Do you know if there was any attempt for fire suppression up at Mount Vaca during this period?
Well, I think what you're probably asking is, did they drop any fire retardant, like airdrops?
Yeah, or make any attempt to save any of the properties up there, or did it just go through so fast they didn't have any chance to react?
Well, no, there were no airdrops, and it was at night, so there weren't any airdrops at night. There were firefighters down at the bottom trying to save some of those houses. I mean, driving up Mixed Canyon Road, for me, is really depressing. I mean, I really feel for those people, but also in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about my own place too.
Thanks again for the presentation, Bob.
Okay, any last questions? Brian, back to you.
Hey, really want to thank you for coming by this evening, giving us the update of what's going on up there. And last minute, on top of everything, great presentation. And everybody, open up your microphones. Let's thank Bob for coming by this evening and such a great presentation.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.